Roof.
Oh,
Yeah.
no,
Doesn't make me nervous at all.
not at all.
I'm just hoping I don't lose my Zoom connection. I was
Hey,
in the
Nick,
middle of
we
a
are good to go.
presentation last week and it totally dropped. So
That's the price you pay for living in the mountains.
I know
Or
for right
spending it.
now, it is. It's a challenge.
All right, Nick, we're ready to go.
All right. And with that, the Tiger Bay Club of Central Florida proudly welcomes all members and guests alike to its monthly meeting. This one is a very special meeting. We get to celebrate women trailblazers who have really set the path. It's absolutely amazing to be here on a screen. Well, it was with the amazing Linda Chapin until she just tried to block it, but
Sorry.
all good. It's all good, but it's so great to have Linda Chapin, the Honorable Glenda Hood, and Commissioner Mabel Butler all on screen with us. And no less than all of those trailblazers and visionaries is our moderator for today, our Tiger Bay Club board member, and the amazing comptroller for Orange County for over 28 years, elected, I believe, eight times in a row because everyone loved her, and voted by her colleagues as the most outstanding CPA in government and the winner of the 2012 Equality Award for Women. Everyone, a round of applause, virtually speaking, for the amazing Marty Haney, who will moderate and take it from here. Marty, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm delighted to be here. This is fun. And it's nice to be able to just ask the questions and not have to give the answers. We'll see how that goes. First of all, I don't think we can begin a program honoring important women without acknowledging the passing of Justice Ginsburg, who was a true legal giant who won many of the rights that we in 2020 take for granted. She will long be remembered and missed. 2020 is a remarkable year for a lot of reasons, but at least one of them is a cause for celebration, as it marks 100 years since most women in the United States won the right to vote. As a part of that celebration, Tiger Bay and the League of Women Voters of Orange County has planned a discussion. I keep thinking we were going to do this in April. Planned a discussion with women who had held elected office in Central Florida. Earlier this year, many of us dug into the history of the suffrage movement and found we had missed a lot. We know that we still need to honor our foremothers who made it possible for women to run for office, hear their stories, and inspire more women to serve the public through elected office. We're lucky in Central Florida because we have a history of electing women, from Beth Johnson in the 1960s to Lieutenant Governor Tony Jennings, and now dozens of women today serving in elected office across all the county, city, and the state. We were able to schedule 3 of these women who deserve the moniker Trailblazers, as when they were elected in the 1980s, decades ago, most of them were still labeled as the first woman to. And I served in Orange County government with 2 of our guests, and I'm lucky to call all 3 of them friends. Since we could take the entire hour to just scratch the surface of their accomplishments, I'm going to be very brief in my introductions. And I'm going to start with the Honorable Glenda Hood because I think she was elected first. Glenda was elected to the Orlando City Council in 1982, served 10 years before becoming mayor in 1992. Our first Orlando Madam Mayor served from 1992 to 2003, when she left to become Florida's Secretary of State. As mayor, Glenda was a strong advocate of growth management and smart growth principles to build safe, livable neighborhoods. Under her leadership, the city's land area grew by 50%. Older and historic in-town neighborhoods were revitalized, and I'm skipping a lot of this, and Orlando became a high-tech center and a competitive rural market. One of the things most memorable, although there are so many, Mayor Hood spearheaded the redevelopment of the Orlando Naval Training Center, the most ambitious economic development project in the city's history, which has been recognized as one of the country's best examples of reuse of former government properties and a model for incorporating all elements of smart growth and civic engagement. Commissioner Butler was the elected representative for District 6 in the city of Orlando from 1984 to 1990. She later won a seat on the Orange County government in 1990 and served 8 years in that capacity. In her heyday, she flexed her considerable political muscle as part of a trio of female politicians who worked together to steer Central Florida through one of its most challenging periods of growth and change. Alongside her political sisters in arms, former Orange County Chairman Linda Chapin and former Orlando Mayor Glenda Hood, she managed to leave her mark on nearly every aspect of life here in our region. And I have to use this quote from Mayor Bill Frederick, who said, "I love Mabel Butler because she will throw you under the bus if you stand in her way. But then she'll pick you up, put you in her car, and take you to the emergency room." And I served, of course, the closest with the Honorable Linda Chapin, who we now call Mayor. After Linda served many years in volunteer roles around the community and was elected to the county commission in the 80s, and then became our first elected mayor in 1992. Linda's tenure included the construction of our beautiful courthouse, not without people going, "Why do we need a courthouse?" The second largest convention center in the country, the Regional History Center, the West Orange Trail, and numerous other trails, parks, and environmental land purchases. Joining the University of Central Florida in 2001, she was the founder of the Metropolitan Center for Regional Studies, a think tank which examines growth, transportation, the environment, and social policy issues. We are lucky to have three remarkable women here to tell their stories and I think inspire us. If I can find my questions. And Commissioner Butler, if I may, I would like to start with you. One of the questions that we got was, what inspired you to run? Was it what in your education or experience gave you the confidence to run for office?
I was really forced into it, Linda, Marty. I had no intent of running because being very outspoken and very involved in the community, I would pull my soapbox any old time, anywhere on the middle of the street. But I was forced because we had a commissioner that was suspended by the governor and the governor had appointed another person. And I felt that this person was not capable, I was really not aware of the needs and the concerns of the community. So I pulled some people together to talk about who were we going to support. And of course, everybody we talked about, there was something wrong with them. So anyway, they decided I should run. So I said, "You really want me to run?" And so being very active politically anyway, I coordinated Bob Graham's West Side efforts in his first run for the governor. And I coordinated a whole lot of candidates like Papa Kennedy. I was his manager as well as his treasurer and whatnot. So the experience I had and the love for people I had. So I took the challenge and ran. And of course, when I was one of the reporters asked me, "Miss Butler, what are you bringing to the city that's not already there?" I said, people I'm bringing to the city. And many times I did that when there were issues concerning people. I'd get one of the church buses and load it up with people. And of course, that's why I ran.
Thank you. Mayor Hood, how about you? What was your inspiration?
It's interesting because ever since I was a child, I had a lot of inspiration. My grandmother actually used to tell me stories about going out and marching for the right to vote because she didn't have the right to vote. She grew up in Chicago, and I loved her stories. And then my mother was the first woman that was elected as a delegate to the National Democratic Convention in 1952. And so I kind of grew up with those role models around me. But I guess the things that really inspired me to run was I was a small business owner. I, kind of knew the community, or so I thought I did by being born and raised in Orlando and being a business owner. But I went through Leadership Orlando. And at the time, we used to have projects we worked on, and mine was planning. And I was fascinated by county and city planning. And Orange County and Orlando were far advanced compared to other communities across the state. And so because of my interest there, then Carl Langford, mayor, appointed me to the Municipal Planning Board and the Zone Commission at the time. And so I had the opportunity to serve on city boards and got to know the city. And then I took on leadership roles in other nonprofit organizations. And I think all of that combined together, and then a lot of encouragement to run against what I'll call maybe one of the last of the good old boys on city council. I ran
Hopefully
in
not the last.
1982 and prevailed. What?
I said,
I won't
"Surely not
name
the
names,
last."
but no, it's not the last. There were old good old boys and new good old boys. So we'll talk about that later.
Thanks. And Mayor Chapin.
Well, like Glenda, I had spent a great deal of time in the volunteer sector. I was working in banking. Always give Blair Culpepper credit for having recruited women to help in his Winter Park Federal. So I was doing that. And then Jacob Stewart asked Blair if I could take a year's sabbatical to do Project 2000. I know Glenda remembers it. I'm not sure many other people do, but she was very active in Project 2000. And for a year, we studied the issues and dreamed about what Orlando wanted to be when we grew up. We talked about, wouldn't it be wonderful if we had a children's hospital? Wouldn't it be great if we could have a professional sports team? I really sometimes sit down with those goals and check them off and see how many we have realized. But at the end of that year, there was an open seat on the Orange County Commission. And like Glenda, we all encouraged each other, and I decided to run for that seat.
Thank you. So did all three of you win your first run for office?
Yes, I did.
Yes.
I think so.
I think so. Yes.
The community was ready for women, Marty. I really
Well-
think that was something that helped each of us in our initial runs for office.
Yeah.
And
When I
there
think
was-
back, I was 32 years old, and it's kind of like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? But the community was very encouraging, and there were a lot of men in the community because we didn't necessarily have women mentors at the time. There weren't many women to be out there to mentor us, but there were men like Jacob that encouraged women to get more actively engaged and involved in things. And I think that helped us tremendously.
One of the questions we got from some of the women on the Tiger Bay board was, what was the reaction that you got from your peers? Were you discouraged by the good old boys? And what obstacles did you think you faced when you ran for office or when you got into office?
No, Marty,
Yeah.
I really think that the 90s, when we all came to office, was kind of a golden age for women. We had many other women who were doing interesting things, leading causes. I'm going to hold up a picture and see if you can all see it because we're all there.
Yeah.
And if you really think about the 90s, Rita Bornstein was president of Rollins. Glenda was at the city. I was at the county. Nancy Houston was DOT secretary for District 5. We had a woman admiral at the Naval Training Center. Marty was there. It really was a wonderful time to be doing these things because certainly at that time, and I still believe ever since, women are motivated by a different set of causes and reasons for doing this. It was a great time to be in office in Central Florida.
And we had a woman as head of the Aviation Authority, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, the EDC, the Chamber. Yeah, it was like the perfect storm. And we did kind of take the community by storm in so many ways. But, you know, I'll just to answer your question specifically, Marty, I don't feel that I was discouraged to run for office. The only thing I will add is that when I would, in 1982, running for city council, every afternoon I'd go walk door to door to door to meet people and get to know people and make sure they knew me. And actually the only people who ever kind of gave me discouraging remarks were other women. And it was because they didn't have the people that they saw as role models that had been in office. And so they would say, why are you running for office? Why aren't you home with your children? Or why aren't you doing this? And, you know, we had to kind of talk a lot of women through that. And then the fundraising aspect of it also was a bit of a barrier at the time. But as I always say in fundraising, there's only two answers they can give you, either yes or no. So you ask them in a way where they have to say yes.
Well, I have no problem. I mean, everybody, the whole community was supportive of my running. It was a question mark is what you gonna do when you get there, you know, that kind of thing. But everybody was supportive, so I had nobody say don't run. The family was supportive, and that was it when they supported me. Yeah.
Well, I love that you all had such encouraging times. I ran against an incumbent. So there were a few people who thought I should run for school board instead, but I didn't want to be on the school board. So I was, did what I wanted to do. Another question we got was to talk a little bit about the changes in public policy that you've seen and changes in the political landscape, which are the result of more women being elected to office. Mabel, you want to start that one?
No, I can't. Well, I guess everybody decided if she can do it, I can do it. And every time I ran either for, my first run with the city, I had no opponent on my second time around. I resigned to run for the county. Then everybody was out there running for the county. And of course, every time I ran for the county, I always had opposition. They found it easy to do, well, if she can, I can. So it was, I think everybody put their hat in the ring. One of the things that most of you don't really remember, the only woman we had in the state of from Orange County was Beth Johnson, Senator Beth Johnson, for a long time. And I've always admired her because of what she did starting the Orlando Housing Authority. She borrowed $10,000, well, she formed a group, and they borrowed $10,000 from the city. And that is the reason why, Glenda, that they used to have to bring a report. And after they pay all their bills, they gave us what was left over. And what is because of they were still paying off that $10,000. And that's how the mayor got to appoint the director of the board members, rather, and the city council confirmed them. But anyway, I've always admired her because she thought that there were a housing need in downtown Orlando. And at that time, the houses were downtown Orlando, even though that was long before I-4 came about. And as I said, I've always admired her. And I tell everybody that the first white female was Beth Johnson. And when Pappy Kennedy, nobody ever tried to run again. No one, none of you white ladies try to run again. But once Pappy Kennedy opened the door, then if he can, I can. And then the floodgates open up. Everybody started running. Glenda, Linda, Marty, everybody started running for office. And because she saw the need. And I wrote, but anyway, Beth Johnson was one of my idols.
I think that when you get involved in politics in the community and you see that the men who are running things and accomplishing things are often really quite ordinary men, it can inspire you to think, I could do that. Linda, what do you think about policy changes maybe and changes since more women have become involved in leadership?
I think the biggest response has been in the issues that used to be regarded as women's issues. And those were children and families, education. People used to rely upon women to run for the school board. And those issues have now really come to the forefront, not only in local and state elections, but in national policy. I think that women have brought those issues to the fore and made everyone realize that they're important to every citizen and every part of the country.
And one of the things I remember that you pushed hard for, Mayor Chapin, was parks.
Yeah.
And
love those parks.
And explaining to people that you really need them. And Glenda, that was one of the things that you championed as mayor.
Right. And I agree with Mabel and Linda on the issues. Linda, I think you used to call them, and we would refer to them as kitchen table issues.
Yes.
They were thought to be women's issues that we'd sit around our kitchen table and talk about. But all of a sudden, and even through Project 2000, they started rising to the top, housing needs, social service needs, education needs, et cetera. So that was very, very important. And I think also just some of the changes that I think we need to talk about is, and Mabel touched on it, is inclusiveness, to bring all voices to the table and include all peoples in the community. That's so important. And, parks are important. I think so many times in the past, we just kind of put parks over here as a nice to have. But in my mind, parks are great equalizers, and it's a place where all peoples can come together, and they should feel safe. They should have opportunities to do recreational things, just, be passive. It's part of health in a community in so many ways. I do a lot of work with the Urban Land Institute. And last week I was on 2 days of Zoom seminars talking about parks, not just as economic development tools, but as ways that people can come together and heal and be healthy. And so, I think parks are one of the most important aspects of our communities. And we launched a huge parks initiative in the city, inventorying everything we had, making sure people had parks in their neighborhoods, close by their neighborhoods. And
well, prior to you getting elected as mayor, Glenda, we had the Green Up Orlando.
Right.
And we all supported that. Pat
Yes.
Swartz and Hellinger. The mayor had nothing but a bunch of women. It was Bill Frederick and his angels, okay?
Now Jerry Demings has that problem.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, Mayor Demings got that problem now. But anyway, we were very supportive of Green Up Orlando.
Yes,
Many people got plants and trees in there
Right.
along the curbs and
Yeah.
whatnot. We were
So
very
again,
supportive.
I think our community's always been in the forefront as far as that goes.
Well, and we were with trails.
Right.
Really, when we started the West Orange Trail and when the city got interested in trails, we were among the first communities in the state, and people were not at all sure that this was a good idea. When we talked to Winter Garden about the West Orange Trail, there was a great deal of resistance. Oh, strangers, transients, litter, crime. Now I really think that Winter Garden believes that they invented the West Orange Trail, but it has proved to be very successful, as have the city trails And now, of course, we're going to have a cross Florida trail. We're going to have a coast to coast trail
Linda,
that connects
I have
all of the
I
trails.
have a granddaughter that lives out there by the trail on McCormick Road, and I visit her quite often, and that trail is very busy. I always think about the
And
native
totally
people.
revitalized,
Yeah.
revitalized Winter Garden. Don't you think, Glenda?
Yes, absolutely. And
Yeah.
all over the country, people want to live close to parks, close to trails. I mean, that's what sells houses, and that's what sells people on communities. So again, we did it.
When
We
we
did
can,
it.
when we can marry economic development with things like good parks, they're sometimes easier to sell across the board, I think.
Yes.
Linda, I just wanted to comment when you reminded us that there are still, I guess, 5 women on the Orange County Commission. I'm always struck by Ruth Bader Ginsburg's response to the question, how many when will there be enough women on the Supreme Court? And she said, when there are 9.
When there are 9.
Yeah, that's good.
So I know that when Linda and I talked about this program a little bit over the last week, she kept telling me she had funny stories to tell.
You know, when we were asked to give speeches, I know that I always tried to confess stories about how none of us were superwoman. I always used to say, except for maybe Glenda Hood. And we were always finding stumbling blocks in our attempt to do it all and have it all. And that debate has raged for many years. And I will tell a story about Glenda because I remember when she packed up her car to go to Tallahassee and become our Secretary of State, which was much needed at the time, someone who would count the votes, right? She packed up the car, she headed north, she got involved in a phone conversation while she was driving north and realized eventually that she was 100 miles into Georgia and had forgotten to turn left at the Panhandle. So we all had our stories to tell. I'm not going to tell any on myself, but I'm happy to tell them on other people.
Oh, well, I think we do have a lot of funny stories. I'll never forget our city clerk, Grace Tuning, telling the story about some irate gentleman who called her office and was complaining about something at the city and demanded to talk to his city commissioner, and city commissioner was a woman. And when he got the city commissioner on the phone, he didn't like what he was hearing, so he demanded to talk to a department head. The department head happened to be a woman. He didn't like that conversation. So he said, well, I'm going straight to the mayor. And unbeknownst to him, the mayor was a woman. And so we always got big laughs out of those stories. But I think it also tells something a little more serious about some of the attitudes at the time. But, you know, I had a car assigned to me from the city. It was a blue Buick. And when I would go to schools to speak, I'd, get in the blue Buick and drive to the school. And I love talking to the children and trying to walk them through a normal day, about how city services were provided to them, walking on the sidewalks and the stoplights and the turning on the water and this and that. And so came to Q&A time, and there'd always be someone with their hand up in the air. And the first question would always be, did you get here in a limousine? And I went, no, I just came in a blue Buick. And my credibility went totally down the drain because I didn't come in a limousine. So, there's all kinds of funny stories that we can tell.
Well, one of my funny stories is when the airport do a bonding deal, it has to come to, it did at that time, I don't know what the problem is now, how they do it, but it had to come to city council to be confirmed. And we gave our contract, well, the airport gave a bonding contract to the first Black company, even though they were out of New York, but that was the first Black deal that they have ever done. with a bonding company. And when we approved it at the city, I got up and tap danced. And of course, Glenda, man,
I remember that.
I got up and did a tap dance on the podium. Okay. And of course, everybody fell out, but I
You
was
know,
so
Marty-
happy about that. It's showing that we are, we're one Orlando.
Yeah.
You know.
And we're,
Marty, you
we're
and
real.
Commissioner Butler would remember a public hearing. There were funny hearings that happened all the time. And Commissioner Butler, do you remember when we were going to change the animal services ordinances and require leash laws and things like that? Well, the whole place filled up with people who were bitterly complaining about how we were trying to take their rights away and their dogs' rights away. And one of those people had a wolf hybrid, a hybrid between a dog and a wolf. And he was saying to the TV cameras that this was the gentlest animal. Why should he be on a leash? When the wolf hybrid turned around and clamped his jaws around the TV cameraman's wrist, right in front of everybody. So we managed to pass those requirements, but that was one of my favorite moments.
I was so glad that the city didn't have animal control under our wing. And I would always say to Linda,
Well, we
I'm
had
so
to pay
glad
for
I can
that.
recommend
We
they
had-
call the county.
We had to pay the county to do our animal control. So, you know.
But it was probably worth it, wasn't it, Glenn?
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely. Every cent, because those can be the most contentious
Yeah.
discussions for sure.
I remember animal control and garbage collection, I think, were some of the.
Marty, one of the famous Orange County stories happened before you and I got there, and Mabel, and that was they were debating mandatory garbage fees. They had to move the hearing from the courthouse to the convention center, the then convention center. And at one point, the attorney went up to Commissioner Treadway, who was chairing the meeting, and said, Commissioner,
You know.
Did we just lose you, Linda?
Uh-oh.
Linda disappeared.
It must have been a good story.
The ghost of Lou Treadway did not want that story to be told.
No.
But she'll be back. There you are.
There.
We lost
I'm
you.
we
back.
lost you.
Sorry. Did you hear the punchline?
No.
No.
Oh, I have to repeat it. Someone said to Commissioner Treadway, Commissioner, you have to do something about this crowd. The citizens are revolting. And Commissioner Treadway said, Joe, you really shouldn't talk about the citizens that way. They're not revolting. They are our citizens.
Oh, boy.
One of the questions that we have gotten from our viewers is, would you name some of the men in your life that made a difference in moving you forward in your career?
I think Linda and I both can name this one, Bill Donegan. And Linda, I got a card from him yesterday. Of course, Democrat, Republican, you know, that kind of thing. And poor Bill, he sit next to me. And of course, he tried to get Linda to move him so many times, and she never moved him off the podium. He was right near me, and there were things he would be voting on. I'd stomp him on his feet because I was mad with it. Not that, well, it passed, whatever it was. But one of the things is Bill Donegan. We made him a beautiful man, didn't we, Linda?
He was a conservative Republican and very concerned about economic issues and budget issues, but he had grown up in New Orleans and he had a heart of gold. And whenever we needed his vote for children's issues or for affordable housing, we could really count on Bill. He would be there.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Bill was a great friend. I'll tell you, someone that comes to my mind is Jim Robinson. And a lot of the people on the call probably don't know who Jim was. He was a very prominent attorney in town, very involved with airport issues over the years. And when I first decided to run for office, Jim had been a family friend. He called me up, was very encouraging. and he would come and sit in my little office at my house in the afternoons and make phone calls to people to introduce me to them and to help me fundraise. And, you know, I'll never forget that. And there were other people that were encouraging like that as well. So I don't think we should ever forget those people who lifted us up and pushed us forward and really helped us in so many ways.
Well, Linda had a favorite one in my community, and that was Father Pender. She loved him to
yes.
death, and he loved her to death, and whatnot. But when Linda had a problem with me, she'd go see Father.
Ask
Boy,
him to
I
go
wish
talk
I'd
to
known.
Commissioner Butler.
She'd go see Father, okay?
Always giving wisdom. Father Pender did. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
we all celebrated the 60th anniversary of his ordination
Yes.
just recently, and he's
Yes.
still an important part of this community.
Well, you know, I served on the Commission on Ministry for our Episcopal Diocese with Father Pender, and of course had known him for years before that, and he'd always been wonderful and supportive of me as well, and given me all that guidance and wisdom. But in those commission meetings, he was still the dominant person and, you know, the guiding principle really for
Well,
all
now
of
that
us.
we're talking about him, he just come out of from rehab.
Oh,
He
really?
fell and broke his shoulder. So
Oh,
he's
no.
home now, girls. Drop him a card,
Oh,
okay?
yes. Oh, thank you for
Drop him
sharing
a
that with
card.
us. Yeah.
One of the comments that I've just gotten is to all the panelists saying that you are making my day. I'm loving hearing this conversation.
That's
So,
nice.
That's good.
We appreciate it.
I wanted to ask you, this is a question that I have trouble answering, but of your time in office, of what are you the most proud? And I'm going to throw that to Glenda maybe first.
Sure. You know, it's interesting because I get asked that a lot. And, you know, I think we could name big initiatives or, you know, big items that we pushed for. But I kind of think of the little things. And those little things that were most satisfying were going out into the neighborhoods and seeing where people's lives were really changed in a positive way because of some of the decisions that we made, or that people in neighborhoods were able to make decisions about what their future was going to be, whether, you know, was the Green Up Orlando program or whether it's through our neighborhood services program with our matching grants and things like that. Those are the things that stick out in my mind. And then one other thing is an attitude change. I can remember when I was going to go to the Downtown Orlando Partnership and give a speech on the arts and culture as an economic development tool. And I was told, oh, no, you can't do that. That's suicide. You just can't do that. And I said, no, I believe this. And I think it's important in a community because, you know, culture is who we are as people, and we need to recognize that. And art isn't something hanging on a wall or something on a stage. It's something that, you know, we all participate in. It can be how our communities are designed, you know, how those parks are brought about, whatever. So I went and made that speech. And over the years, I continued to push on arts and culture as economic development tools, as social needs, etc. And it took a long time. And Linda and Mabel, I'm sure will agree, but the attitude changed. And I think it's things like that that really matter in a community instead of the bricks and mortar items.
Glenda, how about you?
We
Well,
all,
one of the things with me is we had a lot of neglect by the commissioners prior to Mabel Butler at the county level. We had a lot of neglect in the district. So, of course, I went there pushing for those changes, and I ride the roads now that I fought to get. And I always had support from the commission, from my chairman, because she knew the need too, because she would visit the neighborhoods and whatnot. So I'm very proud of Ivy lanes, 4 lane, Old Winter Garden Road from Kirkman to Tampa, a 4 lane. And all that was because of a need. And of course, when I was at the city, let me tell you the story about the city. Our mayor at that time, Bill Frederick, supported uh, John Young. He was very supportive of John Young. He was very angry when the state stopped it at Columbia. At Colonial. He wanted it to go all the way through the city. So anyway, he somehow or another, we loaned the money to the state, Glenda, to build John Young between Colonial and I-4. We loaned the money. The state gave it back to us, but we loaned. Well, anyway, being mayor pro tem, the mayor went away the last hearing of John Young, the public hearing where we got to vote on doing the John Young. Well, the community didn't want it. They swore that we were dividing the community with John Young. Did we divide the community with Kirkman? Did we divide the community? So it was a big fight. Mr. Brooks said that he was going to lay down in the middle of the street, Mr. Rufus Brooks, of course. But anyway, that night of the meeting, I was presiding because the mayor was out of town. He deliberately left, okay? I had 102 temperature with the flu. And I begged those people, please, you have 2 minutes. I asked our clerk, please, don't let them go over 2 minutes. And I begged them, I told them, I said, I'm here with a fever of 102. I hope I don't give it to you. But please, if you're going to get up there and say the same thing the other person said, give your time to someone else and whatnot. Well, I want you to know with 102 fever, we passed that we would complete John Young. And it's been the best thing for this community. The gentleman that was going to lay in the middle of the street loved it, okay, before he passed away.
Yeah.
There are many things that you can think of, Marty, and I'm trying to think of things that a lot of people benefited from.
Marty,
Let me turn it.
I think
Let me turn it
I
to
think
Linda.
all four of us really stressed the idea of communicating with the citizens and transparency about the issues we were dealing with. Like Commissioner Butler, I can think of many things that I was pleased with. And one of them was the relationship that Orange County and the city of Orlando had during Glenda's and my tenure. It's true that a city staff or a county staff will always sort of take sides on these issues. Glenda and I, however, recognize that we had different constituencies, we had different interests, but we could work on things and find compromises. And I'm not sure that we had that afterwards for a long time, but we do have it again today, I think, with Mayor Dyer and Mayor Demings, who are working very well together.
I had no problem in calling it the mayor, Glenda Hood, and setting up a lunch when I was a county commissioner and let tour the area of the county, which I was commissioner, and show that this is coming into the city. Help me change it now so you won't have that problem.
Right.
Okay? You remember, Glenda?
Right. Yeah.
We did that a
Oh,
lot.
yes, absolutely.
No,
But
one of
you
the
know,
questions-
Linda and I we knew that on some issues we were not always going to see eye to eye also, but we would agree to disagree, and we would work together to make sure that our staffs did understand that, ultimately we were the ones that were going to make the decision. And we tried to kind of smooth things over. But I think part of that was, yes, because we're women, and we have worked through things like that all of our lives. But I think also, we've all enjoyed great friendships over the years. And I think to have those strong friendships and relationships are important also.
I want to add, I had the challenge of being county auditor when Madam Mayor was in charge, and our staffs not infrequently were not agreeing on things. And I remember an editorial in the paper suggesting that Linda and I were having a cat fight. And but the way we realized we could resolve those things was if Linda and I sat down and talked without our very helpful staffs always in the room. And it was a great lesson in communication for me. And we managed to get a lot of things done, some positive changes, and very few cat fights.
You know,
Very
Marty, I've been going through, like everybody else, I've been going through lots of files and records and cleaning up and throwing away. And I've looked at newspaper articles that tried to imply that you and I were at odds. Your comments were always so kind and you smoothed everything over. The quotes that I found from Marty Haney were not going to cooperate with any of the newspaper's goals to set up a standoff.
I always tell people that being one of 5 children, and they were all the rest of them were brothers, had taught me a lot about how to get along. And I think a lot of this conversation is really highlighting the importance of relationships and the importance of being able to sit down and talk to one another, which is something that seems to be so absent in our political environment today. What do you think that women, especially, could do to perhaps bring more civility back into politics? Anybody?
Well, I'll just say, I think women need to be bold and willing to step out of their comfort zone and talk about things and bring people together. I remember some of the best advice I was given when I ran for mayor was Reuben Askew, and he always said, be honest, be fearless, and be fair. And, I think we as women have lived by those things. And I think in this day and time, with so much anger and so much going on, that we as women, I think we're the answer, quite honestly. If we're bold enough and courageous enough and fearless enough to step out there and talk about things honestly.
There are more
Glenda,
and more women running for office now, and so I totally agree with Glenda. And as an example of what she says and what Marty talked about, relationships, look at the 4 of us. It's been 30 years and we are all still close friends. It is the ability to care about people, to understand their problems, to work towards solutions. Those are the qualities that women bring to the arena that are needed now as ever before. I'm thrilled to see so many women running for office.
Mabel, do you want to weigh in on this?
Marty, do you remember, I don't know if you remember, but Linda, do you remember the cartoon that the Sentinel had where all the commissioners, you were sitting there and saying, we need counseling, and everybody was piled up on each other? You remember that cartoon? Had I thought about it just like you had that picture, I would have gotten it, because I got that one, where all the commissioners was fighting each other. And she says, we got to have counseling. So,
That's
Well,
funny.
I well remember that whole first term, and Marty observed it closely, that we were changing the whole form of government.
yeah.
It was not a popular move with some of my county commission colleagues, but we made it through, and the
Yeah.
second term was a celebratory one with everyone getting along, I think. Commissioner Butler was an example. She would scold us, and then she would hug us. And
That's
she
right.
taught all of us that you don't
Yes.
I knew how to love and fight at the same time.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, here's a question. What advice would you give to young people today, women and men, who want to get involved in elected office and are thinking about it? What advice particularly would you give them today?
Well, I would suggest so many people get up in the morning and say, I'm going to run for office, have no involvement, have done nothing in a campaign, don't have a base in the first place, a church or a club or anything like that. I would say, if this is your intent in the future, get involved now with some campaign, get involved with some social programs, get involved with something. Don't come to me and say, Miss Butler, I want to run and I need your help. I shoo them away every time. Go, baby. What's your base? Where you bounce from? The Y or the JCs or the church, and they come with nothing. But they want to run for office because they got up this morning and feel that they could run. And they don't have a base.
I agree.
Go ahead.
And do your homework. I mean, educate yourself about the community or about the office you want to run for. Don't just, have a knee jerk and, like Mabel's saying, just, I want to run. Have that base, do your homework, get other people that have, been involved in these positions to sit down with you and talk to you. Really learn. It's important. We need, well-advised and involved people running for office. We need the right people running for office.
Well, the thing about it, they come to me all the time, every election year. Commissioner Butler, I was told by so-and-so to come see you. I said, because I'm going to tell you the truth. You got up this morning. I went to bed thinking about it, but you got up this morning to come to tell me that you want to run and want my help? What have you done? What old lady you took across the street?
I wonder if perhaps the three of you haven't made it look like so much fun that everybody.
Well, it's not a popularity contest, that's for
right.
sure. Politics is not. And people have to understand going into it.
Mayor Chapin, what would you advise?
I was laughing because Glenda and I used to counsel each other not to be thin-skinned, and yet we were. It's hard sometimes not to be. But I would add to, I totally agree with the idea of being involved and caring about the community ahead of time. But I also think it's really important to know what your fundamental principles about serving are, and to know about what you want to champion, know what your most important issues are, and don't try to just wait and figure it all out once you get there. You have to stand for things.
We have one question.
Linda, maybe you could go there that way, but every issue I fought for was important to me. The little ones, the big ones, the middle ones, they're all important
because you're a fighter, Mabel. You're just a fighter.
Yeah. But I think what you're saying, Linda, is be true to yourself, know who you are, know what your values are, know what you stand for. And then the other thing I think, Marty, you were saying we may not have made it look like fun. Well, I think we did.
No, I think you did make it look like
issues, but it was fun, and you can't take yourself too seriously either. And my daughter reminded me of that one time when she said to me, Mom, how come you don't smile anymore? And I was involved in an issue that was very serious, and I just was taking myself much too seriously. And it taught me a big lesson. So you have to go into anything in life that way.
Yeah, I remember very much that I would, was pretty overwhelmed by my job when I first got it. And when I would come home, and at the time my 4- and 6-year-old would greet me at the door with what they needed. And I was immediately brought back down to earth and size. And I think that balance helped me a lot, frankly.
I agree.
One of the things, Marty, you was the first in that position. So you felt that you had to be just so perfect. Glenda was the first in her position, first woman mayor of the city of Orlando. And Linda was the first in her position. And all of you had to, you felt so strain. You know, you couldn't be open and free and fly like a bird like I did, you know.
Except in that picture that Linda has. Linda has a picture of us all looking very happy and
I
free.
know.
I do have a question. I think we've got time for one more, a quick one. Our friend Emerson Thompson wanted to know, what was your greatest disappointment?
Oh, wow.
What was the
Boy.
question?
What was your
our-
greatest disappointment?
I think perhaps the one that comes to mind right away is something that I tried to accomplish way too early. When I was elected as Orange County mayor, I thought that joint planning between the city and the county would be a great idea and a wonderful way to chart our growth and development and change. And I was overly certain that that was the right thing to do. And I pushed it too hard, I pushed it too fast, and it went down in flames. In retrospect, I still think it would have been a good idea, but that was a real disappointment to me.
Well, and I'll jump in. My biggest disappointment was not being able to put light rail in place in our community. Because now we're just being paved over with highways higher and wider and thicker, and destroying our view of downtown and everything else. I mean, that was a huge disappointment to me. But like Linda, I pushed too hard, and I think it was too soon for our community. But now it's too late, unfortunately. And I remember someone saying to me one time, sometimes the only thing worse than being wrong is being right too soon. And I've thought about that a lot. And I think all of us who have vision for our community and can see out many years, and that's what leadership is about, looking out many years and trying to put in place things that will benefit your community, to have that vision. Sometimes it just doesn't work. And so you have to go back and go to plan B or revamp and think of something different.
My greatest disappointment is those that followed me did not see the need of beautification. You know, teaching people to love where you live. All the plants and trees that I got put down as a city commissioner, that I got placed as a county commissioner, that moss is taking them up. That nobody is caring about those things anymore. See, I always believe that neglect creates slums, and cities and county people neglect themselves by not reporting these things. City and county neglect them by not seeing them and changing them. And my greatest disappointment is those that came behind me didn't see the need of beautification in the medium of the street. Didn't see the need of the little islands that we have in the various places to continue to keep them up and whatnot. That's my greatest disappointment.
I think we are about to have gone through our entire hour. I don't know if we've got time for any quick wrap-up statements, Nick, or are you, because you're showing up, does that mean we're done?
I am the harbinger of all things that are good must come to an end. But you know what? I'd love to give everyone a quick concluding statement if they'd like to make one. This wasn't a debate or anything like it, but these women have all earned it, that's for sure. So I'll give way to that request.
Linda?
Let's try and be very brief. Glenda used a word that I think is essential for any of us in public service and citizens and would help in today's times, and that's values. We need to have fundamental values about the way we work and live and treat each other, and we're falling down on that.
Well, mine is let's continue to stay in touch, okay? That's all I got. Let's continue to stay in touch. We've lost quite a few. We've lost quite a few. Hellinger, Swartz, Mary. So let's try and stay in touch with each other.
We do.
Okay.
We
Well,
do.
well,
Let's
we
do.
can consider
And well, and I would just say to conclude, Marty, that and Mabel started to talk about it. People need to feel ownership of their neighborhoods, of their community, and they need to get engaged and they need to care. And if we can continue to get that message out there, people are busy, people are challenged right now as never before, but we need to take a step back and we need to care about one another. We need to care about our community, and we need to get involved and engaged.
I want to thank all three of you for making this as much fun as I thought it probably would be. I appreciate very much you're all putting up with my poor scheduling skills and finally helping us get it all together. So thank you very much. Nick?
And on behalf of Tiger Bay, I want to also thank Mayor Hood, Mayor Chapin, Clerk Chapin, and Commissioner Butler. I got to work with Clerk Chapin briefly during the Fran Carlton, Linda Chapin administration changeover. And that was a grand time, one strong woman leader to another. I'm struck by the wonderful stories and how the world would be so much better with more Butler, more Hood, and more Chapin in it. And of course, more Haney, always more Haney. So
Yes,
thank you
indeed.
all for being here on
See you
behalf of both.
soon. Bye-bye.
And
I
also a
love
big
you
thank
all.
you to
Bye.
the League of Women Voters for
Bye-bye.
all of their support for today's event. Everyone have a blessed day and happy everything. Bye now.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.